In the summer of 1912, Villisca, Iowa, was a thriving, quiet railroad town, a place where residents felt secure enough to regularly leave their front doors unlocked. Josiah and Sarah Moore were pillars of the community. Josiah built his own successful farm implement business, and together they had a large, devoted family. On Sunday night, June 9th, 8 people went to sleep in the Moore house: Josiah, Sarah, their 4 children, and 2 young neighborhood girls who were staying the night after a church program. There were no reported arguments, no strange activity noticed by neighbors. The true horror of what happened lies entirely in how ordinary the evening began. The next morning, a concerned neighbor realized the house was entirely silent. Upon checking the bedrooms, all 8 people were found bludgeoned to death in their beds. The killer didn't even bring a weapon. They used Josiah Moore's own axe to execute the murders, and then left it behind on the property. Before slipping away, the perpetrator methodically extinguished every lamp, draped clothing over the windows, and covered every single mirror in the house. This floor plan illustrates the attacker's path. How does an intruder move from an unforced entry to the master bedroom and sequentially through the children's rooms in total darkness, delivering dozens of heavy physical blows without waking a single victim? Nothing of value was taken, which quickly ruled out a robbery. The covered reflective surfaces and the precise, unhesitating path through the home point to a predator carrying out a highly calculated, premeditated attack. By the time the sun was fully up, news had spread, and a massive crowd of morbidly curious citizens descended upon the property. Before law enforcement could establish a defensive perimeter, hundreds of townspeople walked freely through the house. They stepped in blood, they touched the bodies, they even moved the murder weapon. In 1912, criminal investigators did not have DNA testing or national fingerprint databases. They relied entirely on raw physical evidence: footprints, undisturbed positioning, and trace clues left at the scene. By the time the official investigation began, the only forensic tools available at the time, footprints and fingerprints, were trampled or wiped away by the crowd. This massive intrusion likely erased the only direct physical evidence the killer left behind. Detectives quickly realized that Josiah Moore received significantly more blows than anyone else. This extreme overkill suggested a targeted hit, casting suspicion on Frank F. Jones, a powerful rival businessman who harbored a known grudge against Josiah. Then there was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher with a history of mental instability. Kelly was in Villisca that night and later claimed to have heard the murders taking place. His bizarre, highly detailed statements to police ultimately led prosecutors to put him on trial twice for the killings. But Kelly's confession was erratic. Because the physical crime scene had been thoroughly compromised by the crowd, prosecutors lacked the hard evidence needed to prove his guilt, resulting in an eventual acquittal. Looking beyond Villisca on a map of the American Midwest, researchers noticed a disturbing pattern. Across multiple states, a string of transient axe murders targeted sleeping families. Every single crime scene shared the exact same methodology, down to the signature detail of covered mirrors. A decade of grand juries, private detectives, and compelling theories yielded nothing. The predator's meticulous planning, combined with a scene that had been disturbed from the very first hour, created an impenetrable wall against justice. More than a century has passed. Every suspect, every witness, and every investigator who walked the streets of Villisca that week is dead. 6 children died that night. The youngest, 5-year-old Paul Moore, was killed in his own bed, surrounded by his family, in the place where he should have been safest. Any hope for legal justice has permanently expired. The mystery will never be solved in a court of law. Today, the house on 2nd Street operates as a grim tourist destination. It has been preserved exactly as it was in 1912, and visitors routinely attempt to sleep in the very rooms where the victims died. Without an answer or a conviction, the property stands as a frozen monument to an absolute failure of justice, a permanent reminder of the phantom who vanished into the Iowa darkness and simply got away with it.